Welcome everybody to IMAGI-NATION TV, and today we're focusing on empathy, which is a theme we're going to work through over the course of the week. Now, we've founded IMAGI-NATION TV to bring a mentor into every kid's home every single day, and we're currently in conversations with organisations in New Zealand, in India, in the United States, across South Africa to work out how we can provide a mentor and a guide to parents, to teachers and to kids as we try and navigate these tough times together. And today we have three very special guides that will be joining us. We have Gillies, we have Nicho Plowman, and I have Kirsten Banks who are going to be joining us on the Thinkers panel. And we have a brand new co-host. So in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to update the show a bit, and we'll have kids having the chance to jump on and be a co-host with me from different schools as part of every episode. And today we have a former mentee who now has graduated from school a fair while ago and has been working with AIM for the last almost 6 years, I think. And Rianne Miller is joining us, the co-host today. Rhi, how are you going?
I'm feeling quite nervous, but very excited to be here.
Now, this is a great backdrop you have behind you. And the thing about home studios is there's something always behind the backdrop. So what's behind that backdrop? What's holding it up?
I'm glad you've asked. There's about 3 suitcases, a washing basket, and then my chair holding it in this position, which is why I cannot move at all.
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll make sure that the questions are very focused. What's empathy mean for you?
Yeah, I think empathy is about having the ability to understand other people's emotions. You know, they say it's to walk in another person's shoes. And I think it's just about, I guess, imagining what they're going through and then being able to act accordingly and to show empathetic emotions in response to whatever they're feeling.
When we, a couple of weeks ago, we launched this hoodie that I'm wearing called This Hoodie Pays Rent. And I was reading an article about all of the people that were going to be without a home potentially and rental foreclosures coming in, and thought, well, how do we, I think we had Damon talk about it from 2040, talking about that moment when you read an article or something hits you with a piece of information that you care about and you stop and you act. You don't just let it pivot past you and go, oh, that's really serious, and then you move on. So we made the decision to go, all right, how do we use our empathy for those people struggling to pay rent? And we launched this hoodie, and I've just got a text in from Cam Northey. If you can hear that, that's a garage door opening next door. So yeah, you get real live energy coming through from this raw television show. Cam Northey from AIM has texted the current funds that we've raised $17,514, and we've had shoppers from Australia, USA, Canada, UK, New Zealand, and Germany. And we've had 100 hoodie connectors who have signed up, who are struggling to be able to pay their rent, and they're gonna take their code and then share it with their friends and family, and they'll get $30 from every sale that they refer. So hopefully people will be able to make a bit of money during this time when they're struggling. So Rhi, thanks for joining us as a co-host. Looking forward to getting into the show. Let's go into the video to introduce our thinkers, and let's get in and chat about empathy.
If you don't want to work, don't bother dreaming.
Shame is just nothing.
All of us are dealt different cards, and those cards can be awful, but it's what you do. You are responsible for your reaction.
We've got some comments coming in from the YouTube chat line. Dan Single, I am feeling it. Grace Douglas, great to see you on the show, Rhi. Exclamation mark with a good full stop down the bottom. Yeah, Rianne, go get it, girl boss from Penny Wittenbaker. Jade Simmons, your art is insane, Rhi. Little Legend, Luna Tunes, amazing. Backdrop, Rianne. Nadia M, such a great initiative. This hoodie pays rent. Keep your comments coming through. If you want to support what we're doing here, you can jump on the AIM Mentoring website. You can grab one of these hoodies that pays rent, or you can grab yourself an IMAGI-NATION hoodie. You can also chuck in a donation to help us keep doing this work and try and get out to 1.5 billion kids. Kirsten Banks, tell us about space.
What do you want to know? I can tell you anything about space and astronomy.
I want to know this. How do we visualize the life of a star?
Oh, wow. Starting with the big ones. I like it. So the life of a star is hard for us to see from start to end, because stars live for a lot longer than we do. Stars, like the sun, live for about 10 billion years. So it's very hard to see a star from its very first birth to its spectacular death. But because we can look out into the universe and see stars in different stages of their life, we can see different snapshots, kind of like a photo album of a baby's photo album, for example. And we can see those different snapshots of its lifetime and try and infer between what is going on with stars.
Hey, Nicho, when you work in the field that you're working in and you think about people's well-being, about mindfulness, about meditation, what is it that has created an energy in you that you wanted to act and for others, to support others?
Thanks, Jack. I think the difference between people who can spend some part of their day, a very small part of their day, closing their eyes or breathing or doing something to come back to their own experience of themselves, when they go through the rest of the day, they're going to feel better. And the difference between my life before when I didn't meditate and when I now, since I now do, there were such dramatic changes in terms of how I went about my life that I decided to get out of everything I did. I sold a company, I did a whole bunch of things, and I decided to contribute the rest of my life to teaching meditation. And that's because I find the difference between someone who can take that time during the day and not means that they are going to be happier, healthier, more compassionate, and they will be more empathetic because they're able to consider those people around them more so than they consider their own needs. Yeah.
Liz, Nicho's just said one pretty significant word, which is feeling. How do we talk to our feelings, to others' feelings? How do we move that around?
Jack, I think that's a really interesting question. I think one of the hardest things to do is really genuinely understand something from another person's perspective. I think it's so easy to jump to the conclusion that you know where they're coming from or that you know what's informed the view that they've taken. It's a much deeper, quieter, more impactful place to actually really challenge yourself to move from your own perceptions of what that reality is to their perceptions. And I think that's just such a key in so many respects. It's just so important that we all develop a common understanding of things, and to do that, you've got to step out of who you are. And I think challenge yourself to really, as I said, challenge who you are and what you are to really more deeply understand others.
And is that just about cultivating different characters in our story dialogue? Is it, Kirsten, is it thinking, because, it's a pretty big jump for us, as Liz is saying, to think about others. It's a pretty significant jump to go from thinking about our planet to other planets, to other stars, to other solar systems, to other galaxies. What bridge took you to wanting to know more about the other parts of life outside of our world?
Well, I was always interested in the sky when I was young. In primary school, in fact, in kindy, I wanted to be a meteorologist, and I'm still shocked that I knew that word at 4 years old. But in high school, my science teachers took us on a great opportunity for my entire year group to go see the Hubble documentary narrated by Leo DiCaprio. And my goodness, I was absolutely enthralled by how amazing space was. Just these fantastic photos taken by this phenomenal telescope. I was hooked straight away. And I knew then and there that this is what I want to do. I want to study space. I want to see what the universe has in store for us. And personally, the best part about it that's kept me there for so long is there are so many things that we don't know. And that's super exciting to me.
So while you were listening to Leo narrate a story about the universe, I was watching the Titanic and falling in love with Leonardo through that. So good. I'm glad we both had our different inspiration moments. Rianne, is there anything you want to jump in with?
Yeah, I'd love to know, Nicho, if you think there's a direct link between, the conscious journey you've been on and space, as Kirsten's just spoken about.
Absolutely. If we go, and Kirsten would be able to talk about this in far more detail than I would, but if we consider the quantum universe and moving into conversations we might have at school around science and atoms and all wonderful things, there are worlds within worlds within worlds within actual fact allow us to expand an understanding of the universe. And when we meditate, we are somewhat, when our eyes are closed, part of us can have a sensory experience of something much broader, which is maybe less about our individual eyes open experience and a more connected universal experience, which is obviously our understanding of the universe from a science perspective and astronomy and beautiful things, and an understanding of the more universal aspects of ourselves: love, compassion, empathy, all sorts of beautiful things. So the word itself, universal, ties it all together, whether it's exploring far off galaxies or exploring our own nature. I think it's the link is very strong.
I love that, Nicho. And just to add to that, the universal part, we are actually all made of stars. So we are the atoms in our bodies are forged from the brilliant deaths of sun-like stars and even more massive stars in our sun as well. So there is that deep universal connection with us. And I absolutely love that. Thank you.
I love that you mentioned that. I think it's lovely we can go there and explain that we are all made of stardust. It's beautiful.
That's it.
So it's interesting. In my work, though, what's really interesting is that notion of moving into spaces that you don't know about or you're not expert in is often a real barrier to how people forge new ways of thinking and being. And both of you described this wonderful opportunity to be excited by the unknown. And yet it's funny, when I'm working around sort of building new innovation pipelines to address, for instance, leadership challenges, the hardest thing is to get people to move from what they know into what might be. And it's fascinating that space exploration and meditation, outward and inward, can provide such an extraordinary perspective on the power of that.
I actually think that part of the bridge to get there is imagination. In 16 years of doing this work with kids around the world, I think that it might be close to the meaning of life. It might be the action that allows us to unlock everything. If we can imagine something, if we can imagine space, if we can visualize the life of another, if we can imagine a new story, we can then build the things. And I think it was Plato that once said, you can't tell that I don't think this is a test for anyone who's watching to work out how much I'm going to butcher this quote. But I think it was something like, you can't tell it's a couch until you can understand the image of a couch. You can't tell it's a table until you can understand the image of a table. Kirsten, one of the things which I've found fascinating working with so many Indigenous kids around Australia for 16 years and now working with marginalised kids around the world is I always believe that we should be working with all kids with AIM, that we should be finding a way to work with every student around the world as much as possible. And my view for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander kids, and hopefully a lot of them watching at the moment, is I don't want there to be any ceilings for what their identity can be, for what their story can be. And that macro explanation you provided around us all being built of stardust, that's not a song, like that's reality. And if we're all built of stardust, that's a common thread for humanity. We're also all having a common thread at the moment with shared experience with COVID and isolation. And yeah, I'd be fascinated as to, it's a big question and I don't really like it when people ask me this question. So I'm not going to ask it in the way that people would ask it to me, but I'm interested as to how you've navigated thinking about identity, thinking about your journey, thinking about the stars. And yeah, if you've got any thoughts on that you'd like to try and mash together for us.
Sure. First of all, I love what you said here, that we don't want to have these ceilings for our Indigenous kids or any kids around the world, no matter how marginalised you are. Because the important thing, especially for my journey, is that nothing was going to stop me from doing what I wanted to do. Whether I was the only girl in my physics class at the end of year 12 or the only Indigenous student, as far as I'm aware, in my entire year group, nothing was going to stop me because I knew what I wanted and there shouldn't be any barriers. I know that's not realistic. There are barriers that we do have to push through and jump over those hurdles. But if you are passionate about something, you should be able to use that universal, I love using that word from now on, that universal feeling inside of you to just push through and keep doing, because you can achieve anything you put your mind to. And I love that you want to.
That's a 4-year-old voice for you, right? Like you said that voice was there when you were 4. And often we I had this fascinating moment last night putting my daughter to bed, and I, get to the gift of being able to put her down to bed for somewhere between 1 to 2 hours every night, which is just a real circus show. She's almost 2 years old. And I thought about, I said, oh, like what does this animal look like? Or what's the name? We're about to read a book, and I opened up the book and looked at the cover of it and said, oh, what's this one called? And some of them she now knows the names of some of the books. And this one, she didn't know the name. So she thought for a little bit longer, and then she just made up a name. And I didn't laugh at her. And I just thought, we lose that. We lose that moment where we can just say something and we say, no, that's wrong. Ha ha ha. This is what's right. And in doing that, I was having this real trip because I just watched a Charlie Chaplin movie as well. When I watched her walk over to me, kind of like Charlie Chaplin, I'm like, oh, Chaplin's just a 2-year-old. And so, there's a few thoughts moving around. Liz, what's been some of the more inspiring characters that's helped shape your viewpoint on education and on kids and how you've thought about things?
Wow, gosh, there've been so many people. I tell you what's been most inspiring to me. I'm doing some work around leadership in schools at the moment, and part of the model and the way that I work is I find collaborators who come from different sectors with very different perspectives and build the space or the container in which they can come together to think about new ways of working. And that's been enormously challenging, but so powerful. So there's been, it's just in the dynamic of people committing to learn a new language or, as I said, come from things from a different point of view and then work through the struggles of talking about it in a different way or considering it in a different way. What opens up from that's just amazing. And it strikes me, Jack, in terms of what you were saying before, and both from the other two panelists' point of view, like what are the conditions for imagination? If imagination is this boundary spanner between the state of where we are and where we want to get to, what are those conditions for imagination that allows people to feel comfort in the uncertainty and the complexity? I think it's a fascinating question.
Yeah, I'd love to. Let's dance around the panel with that.
I might jump in. So we can, not to be esoteric about it, but if we just break things down very simply, if we consider what it means to go through our day feeling tired and lethargic and not in our best physical shape, then by virtue of that, we're going to spend our day just wanting to get through it. So creativity and imagination, those things, they don't exist if our physiology is not feeling great. Now, if I just put a little meditation layer to that, if we turn around and meditate and release stress from our body and tension and some fatigue, and we feel better, all of a sudden our disposition is brighter and there's more space for creative thought. And you can just run that little experiment just to think about it. If you think about when you're tired and you might not be acting in ways that feel so good, and there are days when you feel up and happy, you will be expansive. So a simple answer to that, Liz, is just to say, when we are rested and our physiology is feeling stress-free and we're eating well and we're a good environment, there's a natural disposition towards seeing things in a more creative way. We can obviously take that further to then start to consider what it means to live a way that is, we're meditating more, we're doing things that are better for our physiology, we're doing a whole range of things, exercising more serotonin, more dopamine, more beautiful stuff, more endorphins, and those things lend towards a physiology that then creates a good foundation for creativity and imagination.
And we need a language to get to that. We need some sort of understanding of, okay, when we talk about self-dialogue,
yes,
we need the vocabulary. And what I find fascinating about language is it's such a big gift of empathy. I'm in the process of trying to learn my Aboriginal language. And so one of the, the way we say welcome or hello is Jingiwalla in Bundjalung. And so every week or every day, I'm going to be trying to, work on another word or another language piece that I can teach my daughter. Now, what that unveils for me is this, like, I almost feel my ancestors when I say the word. I can suddenly feel like 60,000 years of history. In terms of empathy, language gives us a jump to other places. And all three of you have experimented with very different languages in your fields. Kirsten, how hard is it to translate the language of space to our human brains?
It can be quite difficult because physics isn't a hard, well, sorry, no, other way. Physics is a hard subject, and it is difficult to understand the language of science and the language of astronomy. In fact, I've been doing this TikTok series where I post a fun fact about space every day for Global Astronomy Month in April. And one of the ones is about talking about magnitudes, which is a brightness system in space, basically. So bright stars have a certain magnitude, faint stars have a certain magnitude, and you'd think that bright stars would have a larger magnitude, but it's actually the other way around. Brighter stars have a smaller magnitude and sometimes even a negative magnitude. So it's trying to understand.
Let's go into that. Magnitude, define that for me.
So a magnitude is essentially a level of brightness of a star. So it's really cute where the system first came from. So the first astronomers, and we're talking general Western astronomers here who came up with this system, the sun would go down and they'd watch the stars, and the first group of stars to come out in the night sky are the first magnitude stars. Then the second group are the second magnitude stars, up until the sixth group, the sixth magnitude stars. It has been generally refined over the years and made more formal, such that if you have one star that's a magnitude 1 and one star that's fainter at magnitude 2, these two stars have a difference in visual brightness of about 2.5 times. So the brighter one is 2.5 times brighter than the fainter one, but it's backwards. So for example, the sun has a magnitude of minus 27 or something along those lines. So it's trying to understand.
And we as have invented the human construct of physics as well, right? So we're translating it through a wash already. I'm sure the stars have got a very, very different language to each other, and the way things move. And we put some labels on it, and then suddenly we said, trying to learn about economics, talk about some code work in that one. Hey, Kirsten, one idea I do have is I love the stars, and I'd love us to be able to keep inspired. Like we have a phrase we use at AIM called shoot for the moon, and even if you miss, you land amongst the stars as a goal setting piece, just go for it. So let's make a hoodie together which is about stars, and let's put a bunch of facts all over it, and let's have that as an educational tool that we can share with people. So we'll try and, if you're up for that, we'll try and make it after the show.
I love it. Excellent.
Awesome. Hey, before we wrap up, I'd love to know your message to a 14, 15-year-old kid out there who's watching the show, who's trying to make sense of the world today, who's maybe sitting outside the margins, may not have access to some of the tools of the things that we've been talking about. Where do you start? Where do you go? And how do you push forward?
Liz, I'll just jump in. I mean, it's sort of in terms of access to the tools, I think just as a meditator and for teenagers, 14, 15-year-old, there is wonderful tools out there in all the places that kids are looking for, which is on the internet. It's whether it's Headspace, Calm, Insight Timer. I've given you 3 names of meditation apps that do wonderful courses for teenagers for all sorts of stuff. And I would, really, to me, it's such a natural place to start. I've devoted my life to spreading meditation as far wide as possible. And the ability to sit down and close our eyes and just remove ourselves from that external experience at the moment is a wonderful gift to yourself. And if you give that to yourself, then you can then go and give that gift to others by starting to feel the way others are feeling, which I guess is the topic for today. So place to start, Jack, find resources online around meditation and feeling better, because they exist in free places everywhere. So that's a practical solution.
Awesome. Yeah, we're gonna follow up with all of you after the show to create a resource that we can then plug into curriculums around this topic. So either a video or a short piece of writing. Kirsten, feel free to go nuts on the op-ed on space, and or we'll look at a piece of art that can be a way of communicating. And I think, Nicho, there's plenty of stuff that we can do together on both sides, whether we're taking Imagination TV into your world for the meditators who are out there looking for that support and a resource they can pass on to their kids, and vice versa. And really respect the work you've been doing. So thanks very much for joining us today to be a part of this. And Liz, do you want to finish it up with your thought or message to?
I think the thing is that it's very easy to think that the world's unclear, that it's too complex, that you don't know the path. And my experience is I work with different groups across all different things in school leadership, in science entrepreneurship, in the law, in whole lot of different contexts, and the thing is everybody feels that, and the journey or the place to start your journey is a deep interrogation of who you are and what you want to be in the world, and thinking about the things or the pillars around which you want to build your life, and then use those as the things to launch yourself, because no one's got the answers or knows what it looks like or where to go, but actually being clear on who you are and what you believe, what's important to you, is the best light you can possibly have, I think.
And Liz, let me push a little bit on that one. How do I practically do that? I'm a 15-year-old sitting down, I'm watching the show. How do I start? Do I write something down, or how do I find?
Yeah, I think first of all, just actually stopping, to Nicho's point about the importance of introspection and quietness and meditation, really stopping and saying, who am I? You know, what is it important for me to be? And the thing, for instance, if it's something like being, say, I really value honesty, for example, really thinking about, well, do I live that? Is that who I am and how I live my life? And when I think about where I am and what I want to do I actually hold myself accountable to those sorts of things? I think it's starting in the small places that opens up the big places. If you do live your life according to those sorts of really important, that sort of ethical base, people will come to you and open things up for you, will want to connect with you. But you've got to start by starting small and within, in order to work out how to define who you are and where you are in the world. And then I do think, to Kirsten, I think anything is possible. I think those things are the ballasts around which you can push through, even barriers that seem insurmountable.
Yeah, brilliant. I'll add to it that for kids watching, pretend you're a cake, and the cake's called Who Am I, and come up with 10 ingredients. So you might borrow honesty or trust or empathy, and you might not even know the meanings of the words yet. And the fun thing you'll realize over time is we're never going to know the meanings of the words. We're never going to know the answer to who am I. We're never going to know the answer to what's my moral compass, or what's a good person, or what's a good life. And the beauty of the challenge of living in this stratosphere that we're in is we get to keep trying. You know, we get to wake up every day, and there will always be unknowns, and we'll always be searching and striving, and there'll always be more to do. And Kirsten, in your line of work, I imagine that the stars will still be up there long after human beings have had our time. What motivates you to take on the enormity of the bigness of the world that you're working in, and what are you hoping your legacy is going to be?
Yeah, well, I just want to say that I love that you're right, the stars will always be there. And just to finish on empathy, we all share at least a little bit of the same sky. So if you go out tonight to have a look up at the stars, hopefully it's not cloudy where you are like it is where I am. I'm very sad about that right now. But remember that when you do look up at the stars, when you look up at the planets, when you look up at the moon, you're seeing and sharing the same stars, the same planets, the same moon as everyone around the world. And I think that's absolutely beautiful. And that's kind of my coping mechanism at the moment too, to not only close your eyes, as Nicho said, to meditate and be universally with yourself, but also to open your eyes and look up. Don't look down at your phone, don't look down at your computer, look up at the stars and appreciate your place in the world. Even though it's a big universe out there, you are meant to be here, you can do anything, and nothing's going to stop you.
Awesome. I reckon the title of the hoodie is going to be "We all share a little bit of the same sky," and then we'll just plaster it with facts and everything else. Sounds really good. Hey, thank you all for joining us on the panel. Ree, have you got any final thoughts for our panel?
Yeah, I think, what everyone has said just resonates so much. And I think the best part about life at the moment in this time is that we're not just surviving, that we are thriving, and we're thriving with passion and compassion and empathy and generosity. And yeah, I'm just grateful to be able to sit alongside you guys and to hear what you have to say, and then to, I guess, mentor kids on the other side of this, and to share the stories that you've been able to tell us today. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Liz, Nicho, Kirsten, for joining us on the panel. Rianne and I are going to have a quick chat about our next segment, so we'll jump into that now. But thank you all for your life's work. There's lots of love coming through the chat line, and I'll just share some of it now. We've got Shayaka from Uganda saying, true story, JMB, imagination, isn't it what we are doing when we are meditating? Dan Single, worlds within worlds. Marcus Bishop, quantum theory, questioning our place in the universe, all before afternoon tea. Parul said, great cross connection, Rianne, fun. And then we've got a lot of love for the Star hoodie. So we've already sold a couple, which is good news. Carl Black's Star hoodie, so down. I think that means he will buy it. And Lakeisha Kennel has just said, this generation thrives with passion. So I think that's a great way to wrap up this segment. Thanks you everyone for joining us. Ree, the next part we're moving into is an interview with Jasira. And what was it like when you saw this episode or this AIM TV interview that we did, and just before we were about to share it with kids in our pop-up imagination factories? I think you're at University of South Australia, perhaps leading the program at the time. And yeah, what experience did you have watching what Jasira had done?
Yeah, I think it took me on a roller coaster of emotions. You know, she's very vulnerable in it, and she allows the public, I guess, to show empathy and to approach her with a blindfold on. And as an Indigenous woman, and you know, someone who's a bit fairer skinned than Jasira, I can still understand exactly all of the emotions she's going through when she asks people to put trust in her. And for me, I think I was just sitting on the edge of my seat the whole time, not knowing what was going to happen. And so, you know, once I actually don't want to spoil what happens, but I think I already have. But I think it just brings us back to humanity and to being one, and to understanding that everyone looks different and everyone sounds different. But at the end of the day, we're all just human beings that want a bit of empathy, trust, and support from other people around us.
Let's go to that interview now. Jasira, thank you for joining us on AIM TV.
You're welcome.
Where are we right now?
We're at Grampian Point in Broome.
And how far is this from your home?
It's about 220 k's.
From OAP?
From OAP.
One Arm Point, is that right?
Yeah.
I heard about you, as a few people might have heard about you, because of a video that you were a part of. Where you were on a beach?
Yes, I was on
in Perth? What was the story?
I was on Cottesloe Beach, and I went with a sign that said, I trust you, do you trust me, let's hug. And I blindfolded myself and waited for people to hug me.
Now, it took a little bit of time, didn't it? There was a bit of a break before they came up.
It was actually 5 minutes.
5 minutes by yourself?
Before the first person decided to hug me, and that felt like the longest 5 minutes of my life.
Your heart beating?
Yes. And I was mic'd up and the guys could hear me. I was like, nah, I'm done. Let's go, guys. And then the lady came up to me.
What made you stay?
I think curiosity. I was like, I want to see how far this goes. I want to see if somebody actually goes out of their way to hug a complete stranger.
What do you think the piece was about the colour of your skin and about the difference? Do you think that played a role with whether people were coming up? And
yes, I think that did. I think being an Aboriginal and being really dark-skinned, we're often painted in a negative way, that we're all, you know, savages and can't be trusted. And I think that's something that I wanted to challenge and to show people that, look, I'm just like you, except the colour of my skin is different. Thank you.
Still have loads more now.
Here you go, here's one for you.
Oh,
Beautiful, thank you. Big hugs there.
oh.
What's inside of you that's making you take those opportunities or to walk into places where you're uncomfortable?
I feel like these would be really good opportunities for me to do, and it builds character. And yeah, my family are always encouraging me to get out of my comfort zone and do all these different things. So I think my mob back home always encouraging me to go beyond, go that little extra further, even though it makes me uncomfortable, just do it. Because at the end of the day, I'll just regret not being able to do it.
What's shame mean for you? What do you think about shame?
I think shame is something that holds our people back from reaching their full potential. They have this shame factor. I used to have it, like, oh, not trying my hardest and fear of failing and failing my family and everything. And once I broke through that shame factor, everything was just so much easier for me. So I think, yeah, shame is just nothing. Like, our mob didn't have shame, so it's time for us to break that barrier.
I'm with you. Have you got a final message to the kids on the other side of the camera?
To the kids, I think don't forget where you come from, because your mob is what makes you strong. For me, my mob back home were the mob that were keeping me strong and being able for me to finish my school and to get into uni. And your culture is your pride, and at the end of the day, no one can tell you that you can't do it, because look at me, come from a small community. Now I'm at uni studying to be a marine scientist and also an internet sensation. So yeah, there you go.
Jaseera, thank you for joining us on AIM TV. You're the best.
Thanks for having me.
See you later. Bush. Laters from Bruce.
Lots of love to Jaseera and to the IC crew in Western Australia who helped organise that experiment, and Lockie and the guys who've been working on bringing reconciliation into schools in the West Coast have done great work over the years. So, yeah, it's been another great episode today as we've gone back and thought about ourselves, taken a beat, reflected on the power of empathy, reflected on what it means to be where we are today, thought about closing our eyes, thought about opening our eyes. Rianne, have you managed to digest everything?
It might help if I take myself off mute. Yeah, it's about, life beginning at the end of our comfort zone and really believing in ourselves to be able to imagine what's possible.
Well, thank you for doing that with your life so far, Rianne, and being such a great mentor to so many people and dedicating so much of your time. Thank you to the whole AIM team that's working so hard behind the scenes to bring mentors in every kid's life. To everybody who's watching, let's get out there and let's take this moment to charge ahead with hope and to bring positivity into this world. And anything can be achieved if we consistently put one foot forward and we just keep going. So let's try and bring that force and that power and take on all of the positive pathways forward that our guests have shared with us today. And we'll see you tomorrow for the youngsters segment. Thanks for supporting us. Head to aimmentoring.com, grab This Hoodie Pays Rent hoodie. Let's help some people out. Grab an Imagination TV hoodie or an Imagination hoodie, give a donation, and let's keep coming together and keep working together on this thing to bring a mentor into every kid's home every single day as we make our way through COVID and come out the other side, having redesigned the way the world works, and hopefully we'll have a much fairer world in the process. Lots of love, respect. See you soon.